Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A Light in the Darkness. My name is Ilya, and I've got Benji, Robert, and our guest, Edward, here today. So, hello. And, Edward, why are you the way that you are?
Well, by the way that I am, I do not know. I just am.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Hopefully we
good.
find an answer by the end of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you
And-
from?
Who you is,
Yep.
where you're from.
Where I'm from,
How
who
do
are
you
my
know Russian?
parents. So I'm Edward. I'm 18.
You're 18?
Yeah, I am 18.
I thought you were like 19, 20.
A lot of people did say, like, when
Yeah.
I first started coming to this church, a lot of the youth thought that I was 20, 21, 22, because who comes to church alone, you know? But I'm originally from the District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C. I was born there, and then when I was about 4, my parents decided to move down here because of crime in Washington, D.C., because we also had, like, issues like the D.C. sniper who, like, you know, shot a bunch of people up there
Yeah.
and back in the back of his truck or van or whatever it was.
I did not hear about this.
You never heard about that?
Mm-mm.
I've never heard about it either.
Search
to
up
be
the
honest, but
search
that's
up the DC
interesting.
sniper. So what happened was, not to go off topic, but what happened was this one individual got divorced, and so what he did, he wanted to kill his wife, and so what he did was he bought a white van and he built a little hole in the like the end of the door, and he would like have a sniper rifle, and then he basically went around like shooting random people.
So scary.
And then eventually led up to trying, because he wanted to kill his wife, but he wanted it to seem random. So he did that, but they were able to like find him before then.
Oh man,
So yeah. What was the other question?
that was interesting.
Do you work?
Oh yeah,
work?
yeah.
Yeah, so since I moved here to Harrisonburg to be closer to this church for the summer, since I'm out of University of Thunder, I work at Ross. Drop by.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I see a bunch of people from church.
Love Ross.
That's
I
the
think my
Russian
mom and
Wait, can you
aunt-
give me a discount?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
man.
Then I'm not stopping by.
No, I can buy it for you and resell it.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I think my mom
No.
and aunt saw you there.
Yeah, they did. I talked to a lot of people from this church and also like the Slavic Christian church, the Pentecostal church here, and
The
it's so
Baptist.
funny talking to them because once they like I can usually gauge when someone is Slavic or not, and I'll start talking Russian to them as soon as I see them. And they'll, yo, что такое? Like, you know Russian? I'm like, you know.
Just a little.
Yeah, enough to get by. They're always
Yeah.
so fascinated, and so it's interesting. But that's where I work currently.
Cool. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to see that one day.
You have to go to Ross now. Can I get a discount? If anything?
He just
already
asked
asked
that.
Oh,
He
sorry.
just asked that. Either copy and paste.
Right.
So
But, yeah.
I work there now. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Okay, I guess we can jump into the verse of the week. This week's verse is Psalms 8, verse 9.
Verse
Okay.
10.
It's in the Russian Bible. It's the verses are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Never knew that.
Yep. They're one verse difference, right?
Yep.
That's what it
Mhm.
was. Yeah. Psalms 8, verse 9 is, O Lord, our Lord, your majestic name fills the earth. I mean, this is self-explanatory, really. It's just like saying that his name fills the earth. And if you think about it, it's like if we just go to the things like, for example, like how this earth was made and what's done in this earth it's so incredible how detailed everything is, you know, like it's like a Big Bang couldn't have done that, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I think when I read that. It's
Yeah.
just because like it's just so majestic that God did all that. His name did all that, you know. And
Have either of you guys ever thought about what it was like before the Big Bang? Like, imagine God existing without creating us,
Mhm.
and then deciding one day, I'm gonna create a bunch of humans.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm gonna create like all these planets, and
exactly.
like just to show, like, to demonstrate how glorious I am.
Mhm.
Like, I want to create something that, you know.
And like life is like that verse says so majestic. It's hard to imagine anything different, anything
Yeah.
else outside of that.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
exactly. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and move on to the next thing. All right, verse of the week. Eddie, would you like to share us your testimony?
Ooh, my testimony.
How what brought you to Christ, and just
Ooh.
from the beginning in
The
detail?
the very
from the
beginning.
top.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the
So
beginning.
In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light."
that's so
In the
cliche.
beginning, Eddie said.
Sorry, one second. All right. Anyway, so I was born into a Christian family. When we were younger, we were sort of like, I guess you could say Mennonites in a way. Like we got the whole outfit, went to church, did all the Mennonite things, and
Did
then
you guys have a car? Or like, was it?
that's Amish people.
Oh.
There's
Is
a
it?
different.
I thought it
Yeah.
was Mennonites.
No, Mennonite
Amish people are
Maybe
the ones
old
that
order
don't-
Mennonite.
Okay.
Old order Mennonite, they're
Yeah,
different.
like
Okay.
they're mostly.
And actually, to be honest, I never understood the difference between Amish
So
and Mennonite.
Amish people are the ones, I guess you could say, that do not have electricity,
Okay.
ride the horses and buggies.
Everywhere.
Mennonites are more the people who are like a step down from them.
Okay.
And they have the cars. They usually drive those minivans.
Yeah.
Come
the
out
old-
with like the
old
bonnet.
vehicles,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have can't show their ankles. That's iskushenia.
Yeah.
But
I'm good.
yeah, great. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we were like that, and then we always went to that kind of church until I was about 8. My father was also a pastor. He would, after when I was around 8 years old, after we lived out here for a while, and after we lived out here for a while, my father started, we went to a smaller church. There was maybe 100 people, and my father was one of the main pastors there. We had different pastors some days, like a group of pastors that would preach, because it was more like a family church. And my father also went to prison to preach to inmates at the local
to
prison.
preach.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mom was also really religious. I learned how to reading the Bible of all things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely, and a lot of the times I would have to memorize verses. I learned to write by writing down Bible verses.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but about when I was I would say between when I was 11 and 12, my dad stopped being a pastor, and our family kind of fell back from the whole church going thing.
Yeah.
A lot of my siblings would go to church,
Mhm.
but it was never a family thing at that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm the youngest of my family, so
How many siblings?
10.
Are
Yeah.
you serious?
10?
Yeah. I never told you guys that.
I
did
thought it
not
was
know.
you and your brother.
No, there's
Honestly, because I met your brother
Yeah.
last Saturday, and
Yeah,
I thought it
we-
was just you two.
Yeah, no, there's 10 of us.
Wow. And
Is-
you're the
is
youngest?
he the-
Yeah.
is
Well,
he
there's
the
11,
oldest?
including me. No,
Is-
he's the next older than me. So he's
Okay.
20.
That's
I'm 18.
crazy.
10
Yeah.
children? Or is that with your parents?
No, so it's 11 children, me included.
Total.
Yeah, so I have 10 other siblings. Yeah, so
my.
my
Well-
parents definitely took the Bible literally, but
Yeah. And
so
you guys lived in D.C. again until what time?
when I was 4, so that was
Oh, okay. So that wasn't. Okay.
yeah, that
okay.
wasn't too far back. But usually, by that time, yeah, we lived we weren't exactly in Fredericksburg at that time.
Yeah.
We were do you know where Nova is?
Yes.
Alexandria,
Yeah,
West,
yeah,
West,
yeah.
West Beautiful. Yeah, we were that area. So I usually say DC just to allow people to have a better understanding. So after that, I believe when I was 13, I started to really fall away from religion, I guess.
Mhm.
I started to be I have all these mental illnesses, and I
Yeah.
started to do a lot of different things to cope with that. And I do this one thing called parkour. I'm sure you guys all have heard of that.
I was all over it when I was
Yeah, I
12,
remember.
9-ish.
Yeah, so I did
Yeah.
parkour, and I had a lot of friends that did parkour, and that's really what I started to live for, with parkour.
Yeah.
But then I got injured. So
Oh, okay.
I had physical injuries and emotional injuries, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that came down to me finding short-term satisfaction in other things.
Yeah.
And about 13 is when I started to smoke weed and vape.
Yeah.
And eventually, after a while, I started to get into other things.
Mhm.
I did Xanax a few times. I did shrooms. I did acid. I did a lot of different things. I even snorted coke a few times.
Oh man.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
sent it with all that stuff. So I was basically I would not call myself a drug addict, but I definitely had an inclination to do
yeah,
that.
Yeah, you've done it.
Yeah, and so
Kind of going down that path.
Yeah.
yeah. And so I also did like self harm. So like if you guys ever like see like the cuts on my like fingers and hands, like that was for me like just
Self-harm.
yeah, trying to
Yeah.
like it's pretty cliche to say, but it was an attempt to take the internal pain and like suffering that I felt and like show it on the outside in a way.
Yeah.
But whenever like someone in my family would ask, like, "Are you cutting yourself?" Like, nah, it's I was walking through the woods and a branch got swapped.
That
this way.
worked?
I
Yeah,
jumped
no,
on a
actually, like,
Wow.
rose bush.
yeah,
So no one knew?
yeah, no one in my family
Wow.
knew. Like, even to this day, like, if they watch the podcast, they're gonna be like, none of them even ever knew I did drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Man.
cause like I was the 11th child, and
Yeah, yeah.
everyone kind of had their own group, and I was very quiet. Like a lot of times they'd be like, "Yo, come out of your room, come read." Like, cause I was also like a really like a book addict. I guess you could say I read a lot of books, cause that was also a good escape for me as well.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty much a recluse, and I still am to like now. Like whenever we have family reunions, they're like, "Come down," and I'm like, yeah, I think I'll stay in my room.
Yeah.
So they never really figured out. They just kind of saw the slow like I guess decline of me, where I started to like listen to artists like Lil Peep, and I started to like paint my nails, and I was like really emo.
phase.
Yeah.
About
They-
that.
I
I
was
did
like,
not
and I
believe you.
remember telling my mom like,
I didn't even know about
it's not
that.
a
actually.
phase, Mom. I have photos still like my painted.
You
nails
are
and
the
it.
stereotype.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm like, it's definitely not a phase. This is me forever. If I live forever,
Yeah.
And but when I was about, this lasted for about 3 years until I was around 16. And at that moment, I had enough of living that cycle. I was like, I'd rather not be alive than to continue doing this, because
Yeah.
although a lot of that felt good in the moment, you honestly cannot live for that. Like you're always
Yeah.
you're always searching for something else, and I think that that's something that a lot of people do not realize, because they get stuck in a cycle and they're searching for something in that cycle.
Exactly.
And I believe like the end goal is God. They just don't notice that.
Yep.
So they continue to do this thing. It's going to have a different outcome, but it never does. Because after you do something like, after you take Xanax or after you take acid, you feel ashamed in a way. Or
Exactly.
at least that's how I felt. I felt like just, it was so like painful to have something that controlled me in that manner.
Exactly.
To where if I didn't like have it at that moment, or like throughout the week, I would not be myself.
Yeah.
And that was also the same with like when I'm saying like a lot. I gotta stop saying that all the time. But that was the same because I also had a pornography addiction, and it was so difficult to overcome that as well, because with those desires, like in James chapter 4, it talks about how sinful actions come from our own desires.
Yeah.
And that's those the sin itself is once we allow ourselves to take our eyes off God and to commit that sin. And so, as a male, we all have certain desires, and that desire translated into me constantly being addicted to pornography. So
Yeah.
that was also a very difficult one. But when I was about 15, going back to like the main part, when I was about 16, I made a decision like I was going to kill myself. And I remember I was taking a stroll in the park, and I heard a church bell ring.
Uh-huh.
And I thought to myself, what's that sound? And I looked like Naleva, and I saw like a church. I saw a bunch of people going to church, and they all really seemed so joyful. They're like, good morning to you, good sir. How's your week? I was like, I can't remember the last time someone asked me about my week. And it's almost inexplicable, but I had this desire to go into church. I literally couldn't explain it. Like it was almost as if I was getting pushed, like physically pushed to go into church. And all those like tormented thoughts, like horrible thoughts, just left my mind, and all I could think about is go into church. Just go. Like it's just so indescribable. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to describe it as best I can, but I cannot.
Exactly.
And I went into church. This happened to be around near Christmas. This was December of 2015.
20?
19.
19.
Yeah,
Okay.
19, I believe. And so I went into the church, and it talked about like how God died on the cross for his sins. And I heard this before, and every other time I was just like, oh, not again.
The same
It's,
story.
yeah, good old Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh shucks, like like this is great. But something about that day, like, just it spoke to me so much more. And I remember I was sitting at the front row, and I just started crying, like
Yeah.
silently crying. It was more of like a revelation to me, like this is what I'm searching for,
Exactly.
like someone who cares about me, because I felt helpless, I felt alone.
Yeah.
And so I remember like after that, once I was staying over at my friend's house that night. Well, my brother's friend house that night with him. And so I remember going back, and once I got home that day, I remember praying, and I told God, I'll give you all of 2020. And if nothing changes over my life after 2020, I'll just kill myself, actually. So in March of 2020, I completely forgot I ever said it. And I remember around March of 2020, March 18th, 2020, I got baptized. And that was, well, before then, I could see myself changing.
Yeah.
But up until baptism, I still cut very like often, because you occasionally fall back into that sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still cut. I still would like smoke weed and stuff. But after my baptism, it was just like a switch in my head. Something about like the entire idea of being a baptism, like representing Christ.
Yeah.
Through baptism, like
To the
dying.
world.
Yeah, dying and being born again. Like after that, like all of that changed. And so I remember how can you remember forgetting? But
Yeah.
I forgot like that whole thing I ever said, like I was going to kill myself in 2020, because in a matter of 3 months, my entire life changed. My entire outlook on life just changed with how I saw people, how I saw nature, how I saw basically everything created. Because, God created every single thing that's here. And just, it's so inexplicable to explain how, like, different my view became.
That's amazing.
Craziest thing is very similar happened to me. Like my life up until my baptism, and then the life after your baptism. So like, yeah, I believed in God, understood everything, but then right up until that day, I was having like very, very bad temptation. It's like, is this what I want to do? Do I want to give my life to God? And then I remember our pastor, Piotr Fedjevich, he said something, and he's like, you have a couple minutes to decide
That's what
for
got
yourself.
me.
That's what got
That's
to me.
what, we were in the same
Yeah.
Actually?
group. Yeah. And I remember
like-
we're standing at the lake, and our pastor's standing there. He's like, all right, you guys got a couple of minutes. I mean, he'll say what he was saying, and that's what just clicked to me. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
I am now
That's
going to
what
be
clicked to me. It was
baptized.
like, you guys got a couple minutes, like, reflect on your entire past life, your whole journey through this whole process. Are you doing this for yourself? Because if you are, then you'll come in a sinner to the water, you'll come out a wet sinner. And before you get
so
home,
hard.
you'll sin God knows how many times. It's like, but this is much more than that. This is you're giving your life to represent Him, represent His kingdom. That's what I got out of it. And then I'm sitting there at the chairs, and I reflected back into my entire life before then, all my temptations, all the things I was battling. And then I was like, you're right, this is what I want to do. So I said a quick prayer, and I said, Lord, I want to give my life to you. And I don't know what's ahead of me, but I give it to your hands, and I trust you. And then from that day, I can't even explain to you. It's like so much weight just off your shoulders.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and I've never been that happy in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's a, like you said, it's a feeling you can't explain. And then after that, everything else just fell into place.
Yeah.
After baptism, everything how it should be.
Yeah, maybe not right away, but I'm
Maybe
telling
not
you,
right
like,
away, but then,
yeah,
over
slowly
time.
but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowly but
Like in
surely.
your instance, it wasn't the next day you saw that God was switching things. It took 3 months and you were baptized,
Yeah.
And it's impressive. Like a lot of people expect change, and we're actually working on a film right now about this, but it's like evangelizing. When you go evangelizing and you tell someone about Christ, you make it sound like they're supposed to expect change tomorrow.
Yeah,
you know,
right
you're
away.
shoving it through, and you're like, you gotta confess
Repent,
all
yeah.
your sins. You gotta repent. You gotta be baptized tomorrow. You gotta do this, that, and then they're just kind of like, like, just imagine you're sitting there. Some guy comes up to you and says, change your whole life right now. Like, change everything, change all your beliefs, everything, you know?
You'd be like, bro, what are you telling me?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
realistically,
So much
like,
shit, yeah.
temptations and obstacles are only going to become even stronger
yeah.
after you devote yourself to God.
Exactly.
Because then you're almost like a target for the devil. So this person dedicated themselves to God. Let's see if I can
Yeah.
make them stray.
And also, one thing I've noticed, like, pakayanya, a lot of people think that once you, like, pakayalsa, it's immediately smooth sailing from there.
Oh,
You
it's
no
harder.
longer
It's
sin.
even harder.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
maybe
And-
like a day or two,
Yeah.
you feel, at peace, but then that's when the battles
Yeah.
start coming in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've met so many people who
It's-
have been in church and they're like, yeah, pakayalsa. But like srazu, I immediately like at once sinned. You know, right after walking from the pulpit, you know,
Yeah.
I had this lustful daughter, you know, or when we were like eating after service, I said something I shouldn't have said, or I did something and I lied, you know, and then they're like, I'm no longer good enough. Like
Or
after a while,
my salvation
yeah.
is my salvation.
But
not
then this
good
is
anymore.
this is something like, it just goes to show, in my, like, the way I see it is, you repent and you gave everything to Christ, and then this is like Christ's way of showing you, like, did you give me everything, and like, actually, because you
Did
get
you
all
truly
these,
mean
exactly, you get all these like trials, all these temptations, everything hits you, and the way you react is what the way you actually, like, did you actually give everything to
Yeah.
him? If you react by saying, Lord, this is your tests, or this is something I can't handle, so it's for you to
I give it all to you.
I give it all
It's
to you.
crazy
so
how
for you
it
to
works.
handle.
Like, you give it to God, and the temptation just goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
that is very true.
like we said with Mike Barco, we were talking about it. Nothing is gonna matter if you just give him everything. And the minute you don't give him everything, that's when stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
realize that so much. Like, even now, like, you're working, you get so caught up in work, you just forget everything. You're just focused on that, and then that can just tail off to something else, and then something else, and then something else. You know,
Yeah.
and now your mind's in the gutter, and you're like, what is going on?
Your
You
mind's in the
know,
gutter,
and
yeah.
it's like, I'm telling you, it's just impressive how
Yeah.
simple it is. It's just number one, Christ, everything else.
Yeah, and
right
I
behind
think
it.
the most important thing, or the biggest помощник, like helper, to, I guess, diverting your attention in the day is starting the day with the Word of God.
Yeah.
If you can start the day with the Word of God, 9 times out of 10, the entire day, your mind will be set towards God in heaven. Because I remember I had a conversation with Victor Maroz at his house, and we were late to church. And I said, "Oh, dude, you gotta dress. We're late to church." He's like, "Oh, I was reading the Bible." I was like, "Didn't you read it last night?" And he said, "I read it every day, twice a day at least. I at least tried it." And I was like, I should try that.
It's amazing.
And once you try that, once you start the Word of God with your day in it, just the amount of like joy I have is incredible. And I realize when I do not read the Bible, and once I sin during that day, that
You
sin
realize.
further separates me from like the Bible and the Word
Yep.
of God, and it makes it so much harder to come back because you're like, I'm unclean. Я грешил, you know. I can no longer come to God. I feel ashamed, but
Exactly.
you know.
But then another thing is, like, I caught myself doing this a lot of times. Is like, I do read the Bible in the morning, but I still end up sinning, or I
Yeah,
still
that's
end
true
up
too,
forgetting,
yeah.
or I just still get distracted. But then I look back at it and I realize, I'm like, did I truly read the Bible in the morning, or did I skim through the Bible? You know, 'cause sometimes
little
it's like
checkbox.
checkbox.
I did
You
it,
check it
yeah.
off, and you're like, all right, let's keep going. Next is go brush my teeth, or you know, it's like,
Brush your
Like,
teeth in
you-
the morning.
Thank goodness.
what was that? Yeah.
No,
Y'all
that's
do? Wait.
Well, what's a toothbrush?
Okay, that's an intervention for another day. Please brush your teeth. Benji.
Anyways, moving on.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's like you think about it, and prayer too, and reading. It becomes this repetitive thing, and that's a bad thing. You don't want to be repetitive. You know, like even in any relationship with like your loved one or anything, you wouldn't want her just to sit there and say the same thing and not truly mean it.
Classic.
Honestly, I know
you
someone
know?
that would, but
Yeah.
Like out of habit, just. Yeah.
They just it's just like
Just say it just cause.
it's like, hey, I love you. Do you?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like-
no, yeah, that's true. That's a big meaning behind it. And like,
Classic.
I was going to mention this later, but I think this is like a good medium. Is that like that's why I read the Russian Bible more than English. Because I realize when I read Russian, the Russian Bible, I pay much more attention. And it
Exactly.
speaks so much more to me because I actually have to pay attention in order to gain something.
Interesting.
Whereas in English, hey, in the beginning, God created the world. Oh, cool, you know. I just read
I've
right
heard
by
that
it.
one
Yeah,
before.
exactly. It's like, oh, great. But when I see it in a different way, because you know, the translations are never the same with different languages, and
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I've just found so much more meaning. when I
Yeah.
read,
Like depth to it?
yeah, because it's not like my native language, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's just I don't know, it just speaks more to me. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting when you're talking about like skimming over the Bible because I had a habit of skimming over the
Oh,
Bible
yeah.
so much. And
I still once in a while get it, and then sometimes it's like I believe it wasn't said in the Bible somewhere, but I just remember someone telling me it's like sometimes it's just better not to read if you cannot like if you're just skimming through and you cannot get it right. You
Focus
know,
on it, yeah.
either sit down and get it get your mind straight and focus it. But if you literally cannot, or something's just in the way, like once again, pray, give
Yeah.
it to God. You
When
know?
that would happen to me is like when I would like have like Bible reading plans, and so there's like something you have to read every day to continue on with their plan, and I'm just trying to get it done, so I'm not
Yeah,
actually learning anything.
Yeah.
that was the struggle with me.
It's like
so.
streak on the
Yeah.
Bible app.
Yeah.
It's like, don't lose your
lost that
streak.
recently.
Like,
Right.
come on.
But then on the flip side, when you don't have a plan, it's hard to remind yourself to do it every day and to actively. So
Exactly.
finding that balance.
Speaking of, how do you know Russian?
how
Oh,
do
yeah.
I know Russian?
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
question.
What's your story
That's
behind
the
that?
inevitable question I receive every day at conference.
Take us back to that.
I should make little cards for when
Just
I'm at
give them business
conference.
cards.
And people come, how do you learn? Hey, read this. Read this. It's
Or
small
just start
defined print.
talking to them in Russian. It shocks people.
Yeah.
When I found out you're talking in Russian, first time I met you, I was like,
Okay.
whoa.
Yeah.
No, first time I remember seeing you, the first time I was sitting up in choir and I see you walk in and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That guy, he came to our church. I wondered who he came with. And then when I found out that he didn't come with anyone, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, Slava Bogu, like, that's good. And then I see that someone came up to you and offered you a translator, and you're like, no, I'm good. And I was like,
Oh, I think I
"Wait,
saw that.
what?"
I was like,
I was lost. But
Yeah.
I was
and then
like, this man is confident.
I was like, dang, okay, this is interesting. Maybe he wants to learn it, or maybe he already knows it. Like,
Yeah, this man
Slava
either has
Bogu, you
mad
know?
anxiety, is afraid for help, or
Yeah.
No, so when I started going to uni, so Charlottesville, UVA
Yeah.
area, I met a lot of people that were older than me, and like I was always drawn to the foreigners because they always seem so much more like happy and
Different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
different. You could
exactly.
say, yeah.
We have a different vibe.
Yeah, and like I met a lot of Ukrainians in university
Oh, man.
that were studying abroad, and I started tutoring. And I usually did this for fun because I was always interested in languages. Like when I was 13, I started learning Norwegian and Swedish, and then French and Japanese and Chinese. None of those ever worked out, but
Yeah.
I'm here. But so I eventually started learning Ukrainian at first, but then COVID started in 2020, and
Yeah.
after that, a lot of the Ukrainians I knew went back to Ukraine, and so sometimes I would be out for a walk. And in Charlottesville, there's a large density of Russians actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Which is a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
people wouldn't think that, and you wouldn't really expect it, but I kept running into Russians, and I would try talking Ukrainian. They would be speaking Russian. They would look at me like, this idiot, what is he doing? Why is he embarrassing himself, you know? And so after a while, I decided that I would learn Russian instead, because I also looked at like, well, how many people could I talk to if I spoke Russian instead of Ukrainian?
Yeah.
And, you know, in the world, there's probably 65 million people that speak Ukrainian. and 240 million people that speak Russian. But that was 2014, so it might have,
Changed,
yeah,
gone
'cause-
down already.
yeah, they haven't updated that. So I started learning Russian in October of 2020. So almost 2 years in October.
Dang.
You've learned a lot.
And Russia's
Well,
not
I'll
an
be
easy
honest.
language
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Like I know my parents always teach me. It's like if you ever have kids, teach them Russian first because it's such a hard
Yeah.
language.
Yes,
It's a hard
обязательно,
language. You want
yeah.
them to
So
learn that.
you decided to learn Russian before you even started going to a Russian Slavic church?
Yeah, so
Interesting.
I had a friend named Daria, and she was a foreign exchange student
Mhm.
at JMU, and she came here twice in
Okay.
June of 2020, last year. Wait, no, that's not last year. That's
2020, you mean
2021. Sorry.
21? Okay.
And
To our church?
yeah, to your
Okay.
church, and she came like twice, so I'm sure a lot of you probably didn't meet her, but I remember she told me about this, and I said, "No way, Jose! Like, my Russian is terrible, especially like June of 2021, terrible.
Yeah.
I was terrible. I'd be like, "Я нравится,"
Yeah.
"Я влюбилась." Like it was just like it's such bad Russian, and so I was actually planning to come to the Slavic Christian church, the Pentecostal church.
Mhm.
The 50s.
And I went to
Oh,
their
okay,
and
the
I
one
went to
in-
the 50s. Yeah, I went to their old church, and
yeah,
it
'cause
was
they just built their
yeah,
new one.
and
I
it was
think
closed.
well they've been building it for almost
past, like,
6 years already.
10 years or
but
so.
they just finished it this year and
Yeah.
they moved in.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good story too.
Yeah.
Going last Sunday, I went there last Sunday, but yeah, so I went to their old church, and it was closed, and so. I sat in my car for like 20 minutes. I was arguing with myself because I was wearing a pair of jeans
Yeah.
and a T-shirt, and at like
Sinner vibes. No,
Snake. Yeah, and so I was like arguing with because I saw photos of like this church, and everyone was wearing like costumes and stuff,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
suits, I guess. And I was like, I can't go.
yeah.
And I'm black. Not gonna lie. 'Cause I didn't want to. I did not want to be that one black guy. Who's number one late, number two dresses like on an occasion. I mean, not for the occasion. And so after a while, I said, can't be that bad. If it's that bad, I just never will come back. I live 2 hours away. I'm not gonna run into these people. So I remember I got here 10 minutes late because I was arguing with myself, and it's like I sat in my car for another 5 minutes. I said, okay, let's go. So then I walked into the church, and I remember. Do you know the names of the two gentlemen that always sit at the outside the doors?
But
Dad
again-
Vitalik and my uncle or
Dad Vita?
cousin, Dad
Yeah.
Vita, yeah.
So I see him look at me. I'm like, that's a bright face. So then he comes over to me, and he's speaking really like his English isn't as good as his Russian, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm like scratching my head trying to figure out what he's saying, because he's like, "Do you need naushniki?" I'm like, "What are naushniki?" I've never heard of that word. And then after a while, he was like, "Translator." I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Нет, я понял." And he's like, "Ты понимаешь русский язык?" I was like, "Я полагаю," you know. And I was trying not to laugh because it was kind of funny. So then I went to sit down, and then I was sitting in church for like a minute tops before David Selukov came up to me. He's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, excuse me,
David.
do you need a translator?" I was like, "Nada." He looked at me like,
I can see that.
it's like his
I
head
see
twisted
that.
around all the way, came back, and he's like, I was like, "No." And though,
It's
and
like,
then
nah, it's probably God speaking to
yeah.
me.
And do you guys know Peter? He's like one of the administrators for the school. He's from
Barajian?
Uzbekistan.
From where's he from?
Uzbekistan, I believe.
Where does he live?
He's from here.
He's from here.
Yeah.
Barajian?
Barajin? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it might be him. Yeah, he comes to tap me on the shoulder, like, "Do you need naushniki?" I'm like,
The third person.
"Yeah."
to
I was
ask.
like, I was like, "I hate to tell you, buddy, but not really." So then afterwards, and I remember the first 10 minutes, I didn't understand anything, but I was like, I'm just gonna try my best to understand, because I was so nervous, because all the babushkis were looking at me, like breaking their necks, looking at me like, "Who's this kid?" I was like,
The whole church
Yeah.
stopped
Oh
for
my,
a solid
that's
4
funny.
minutes looking at you.
Yeah. And it didn't help that I was wearing like almost this exact outfit to like a
Yeah.
Sunday service. So after like окончание собрания, like after the end of service, I remember I met this one dude in a beard. He's a truck driver. I don't know his name, but I was coming out of the bathroom, and he started talking to me.
Was he darker skinned? Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
That's my dad.
That was your dad who talked
I
to me?
remember this because he walked up to me like 2 months later or something, and he was talking to me like, hey, do you know if that color is a little darker? And I was like, Dad, you could say his skin. Like, if you don't know his name, you need to describe him somehow. And he's like, yeah, does he still come and stuff? I was like, yeah, actually, I've started like hanging out with him and things.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, really? He's like, oh, that's cool. I talked to him the first time he was here, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my dad.
Yeah. And so I remember, like, after we stopped talking, he said, so you coming back for the second service? And I thought to myself, you got to be joking me, mate. Because around, like, after the last sermon, the first sermon, I was like, oh, church is ending early today? No way. Like, like, the sermons are usually 20, 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then I was, like, getting ready to get up, and no one else was getting up after the songs. And I was like,
Something's
no.
not right.
Yeah, I was like, something's not right here, because no one ever told me it was 2 hours long.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I was suffering for the last hour, thinking, when is this going to be over? Because in American churches, we
It's
only
usually an hour.
Yeah, it's usually an hour,
Yeah.
15 minutes, give or take. And so when he said the second service, I was like, buddy, are you actually serious about
Also, it's pretty shocking because I feel like a lot of American churches usually one person speaking,
Yeah, yeah.
giving a word, but here it's three.
Yeah,
Three
exactly.
per service.
So that was also
Yeah.
where it's weird, because I was like, what are these just like guys giving a little bit
Yeah.
of talking, you know? That makes no sense. But so after that, I went to Bridgewater to see one of my friends, and it was probably like at like 3 o'clock. I was like, I might as well go. So then
Yeah.
I went for like the evening service, and afterwards I met Peter again and a bunch of other people. I was like, wow, some great guys, some great homies, you know? Not homies yet, but pretty good people. And then, like, I loved how loving the entire church was, because in American churches, I've been to a lot of American churches, and during the time from when I first became a Christian to when I came here, and at most of the churches, people aren't as welcoming. Like, maybe the deacon or the pastor might come to you, but it would never be just like someone in the congregation that would actually come and say hi to you.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what kind of kept me coming back, I guess. And yeah, been here ever since January of this year.
So do you
Follow
live
this
here
stuff.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just didn't know.
Oh, I said that the introduction, man.
Oh, I wasn't listening. No.
Ah, greshnik. Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right. not
Sinner
paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Also, I had a question. What did you study in university?
so I study special education.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, wait. So special education, is this helping special ed children?
Yeah.
Or?
It's helping people that have some sort of disabilities, whether it's something like autism, Down
Yeah.
syndrome, schizophrenia,
Yeah.
or anorexia nervosa, like
That's
nervosa.
interesting.
Yeah, but that was actually what my dad picked for me.
Oh,
'Cause
really?
I started university when I was 15.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What?
I just
Why
got
were
caught
you
off guard.
15 in university?
Well, actually, I'm not surprised because didn't
You said home.
didn't your wife do it early too?
She
Wife.
graduated.
Your
from-
wife,
yeah.
Well, I'm not married yet. But
Give it another month.
Future wife. I'm sorry.
Another month.
Married
Your
yet,
fiance. Your fiance.
well, she graduated early and did start community college early.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I guess that would make sense if you graduate early, you can start.
Yeah.
college early.
Yeah.
Were you
Okay.
homeschooled?
Yeah, I was
That makes
homeschooled.
sense.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, there you
so
go.
I was homeschooled. My parents would throw a book at me and say, "Better be done or else." I never wanted to figure out what "or else" meant. So I did.
Do you like it? Like what you're studying?
What, the or else?
Well, I study online now.
Yeah.
I like it. I do. Like I said, my dad picked it for me, and because education, it's always a necessity.
Yeah.
And he told me, if you want something else, you can change when you're older. So after a while, like I've been doing like my practicum of student teaching, and I feel like a lot of the people that I worked with do not challenge the students. It's more or less, this child has a disability, therefore that's an excuse for us not to teach them anything.
Not to teach him and then.
Yeah. We're
That's very true. I don't know if you know this, but my sister is she's
Yeah.
special, to say the least. But basically that's the same issue I've realized is they used to not teach her as much. They would just
babysitter.
yeah,
kind of,
babysitter. Literally, we're just like, all right, send her off to school. We won't. We don't have to look after this, but then she would come home and we're like, she's not really learning anything that
Yeah.
much. And then only for the past, I think since she got into high school, that's when she started learning a lot,
Yeah.
And because she got new teachers who are actually like
Care, yeah.
care.
Passionate,
They're
that's good.
young. They just got into it,
Yeah.
and they care. They love her, and they like everything. And then I remember back when I still went to high school, we went to the same high school, that's how people would know me.
Oh, actually?
They'd be like, "Oh, you're Nellie's brother."
Actually?
Yeah, because
more popular than
because she was
She's like,
way
"Bro."
more popular. People know her like everywhere. She's like super popular now because they like teach her things. She does basketball like and everything.
Bass,
It's
yeah.
really interesting, but
That's
yeah,
actually
like
really cool.
she's been way more challenging. I agree on that. It's not a lot of them are challenged.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
so I think I do want to return back to school to get my master's in accounting because I also want to support a family. When I'm
Yeah.
older, I want to get married.
Yeah.
I'm
Ooh,
not dating anyone.
ladies. No.
He's single. He's single.
Fingo
What's
the
your
Pringo.
Insta?
And he
Let
wants
us
What's
to
my
get
Insta?
married.
Nah, yeah, no, I'll wait on that one.
We'll just
Yeah.
give out your phone number. Just,
Yeah, just you let it cross like
Right.
across the screen. But yeah, because also with special education, you're not really paid a lot, but it's so emotionally like taxing.
Draining.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
taxing. Like,
Which it always blew my mind. Like the jobs that are the most draining, like teachers, anything like that, working with disability. Like, why is that like so much
Yeah.
seen as like
Lower,
lower on the end
yeah.
of society? When
Exactly.
it's like the jobs that need the most kind of like push.
yeah, I
dedication.
think in Japan, Japan,
Japan.
Yeah.
the teachers there are paid as much as the doctors.
Oh,
For
I
real?
believe
that's
yeah.
crazy.
So in different
Okay.
countries, and like that's
That's why
also
they're
in
so smart.
in
Yeah.
Finland as
Really?
well. In Finland as well, I think the teachers are paid as much as the doctors almost, or at least the nurses. I'm not sure if it's doctors or
Mhm.
nurses, but yeah, some countries do actually value teachers.
Yeah.
So, but
good
not in
stuff.
America.
Mm.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think we're coming towards an end here. We did get a little bit off topic, but that's all right.
Yeah, you think
That was a good combo.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing your testimony,
Yeah,
being like
thank you.
honest
It was
and
great.
vulnerable, because I feel like for a lot of people, like it's kind of like we don't really talk about these things or talk about struggles. But the more we do so, and the more that there's less of a stigma around it, the more we can support each other to actually get closer to God and not
Yeah.
fall back to struggles.
Exactly.
I was gonna say in a little addition to your testimony, like you were saying, you were looking for satisfaction in earthly things. I think we mentioned this before in the podcast, but you can only find true satisfaction in God.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically to add on to what you're saying is like, if you're looking for satisfaction on earth, you can only be satisfied for so long. You find like you're trying to get this one job. You get that job. What are you gonna do next?
Yeah.
What's your next satisfaction?
It's fleeting.
Exactly.
I feel
and
like
your
humans-
final satisfaction, like if you look at a timeline, yeah, your job falls here, your job falls here, but what's at the end? That's what, as soon as you strive for that, everything else, it'll happen. You don't even care about that because you're aiming for that last thing,
Yep.
for
Yeah.
your final reward, to be in the presence of God and be in heaven.
See, I feel like humans are always made to strive for something. That like we're built from default to like strive towards something. I feel like that strive is towards God.
Yeah.
Except people that don't know that, they look for earthly things, whatever, if it's drugs or if it's pornography.
Yeah.
Or,
They
you know,
strive,
other
but not for the
things.
right things.
Yeah. Karocha, like momentary distractions to
Exactly.
keep
Yeah.
us from realizing how, I suppose, hopeless we are when we try to depend on ourselves. and
Exactly.
talk about our own strength,
The devil usually does most of the work for that to get you distracted. He knows a lot, but not
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Only God knows everything.
And like I also think one of the reasons why like I'm so open to sharing my testimony is because I think it helps other people
Of course.
understand like the value in it. And like I'm like in Florida, was it Florida? I can't remember. But
Around the campfire?
yeah.
Yeah,
We were
Florida.
on the campfire, and
Yeah.
like after I told my testimony there, and I remember like when I was walking away, like there were a few people who came up to me, and then a few people who came up to me Sunday, the day after, were like, your testimony meant so much to me. Like it actually made me start thinking about my relationship with God and stuff. And, like,
I was actually there.
Were you?
When you were saying your testimony, I just walked up to the fire and I started hearing it, and it changed my perspective on a couple of things,
Yeah.
and you in general. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a really good testimony.
I know some people walked up when I was like crying about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, what's this guy crying about?
it's like, this is a bad time.
Yeah, is this a bad time? Oh, let me
Probably lost the game of volleyball.
Yeah.
Probably.
Those Florida guys are really good at it.
Yeah.
They're good at volleyball.
Try hard.
But yeah,
It's,
definitely important.
But yeah, I mean, Edward, thank you for coming on today.
Yes.
That was
Thank you
a
for
great
having me.
episode. I enjoyed it.
Hope it
I
wasn't
loved
too
it as
boring
well.
for you guys.
No.
No way. It was good.
We'll just delete it.
Yeah,
yeah, if it was boring, I'll delete it.
Actually, you can just delete it. Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining in today, for tuning in. We have episodes coming out every Thursday at 8, and now we're going to be releasing snippets of episodes if you guys don't want to watch the full things every week, hopefully, if we get onto that. And guys, make sure to subscribe and like the video and share it. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Goodbye.